Добредојавте во новата сезона на подкастот Чекор напред со М6, подкаст во кој разговараме за лидерството, континуираното учење, потребата од стекнување нови вештини кои ќе ги дизајнираат идните организации, идните работни места. Денес ќе имаме посебна чест со нас да биде една исклучителна личност со богата меѓународна кариера, која ги поврзува идеите, луѓето и организациите од овој регион со на претежно Обединетото кралство и која успева да изгради една мрежа поврзување што дава резултат и за двата региона, бенефит и за нашиот регион и за Обединетото кралство. Денеска со нас е Biljana Braithwaite. Може би не ја изговорив точно. Личност која е основач и директор на Sustainary организацијата или компанијата која претежно дава консултантски услуги во делот на sustainability и исто така е основач и иницијатор на Women on Board Adria, организација која ги стимулира, ги обучува претежно жените, се залага за еднакполова родова еднаквост, каде што ги стимулира, обучува и поддржува жените да бидат дел од бордовите во регионот, местата каде што се носат вистинските одлуки. Biljana, welcome to our podcast. It's an honor for us to have you here today to share your insights and views on a current context, economical and political, and your expectations in future. In the beginning, I would like to ask you how come that you as from Serbian origin living in London have a Macedonian name?
Well, first, thank you very much for hosting me, to you and to M6, with whom we have brilliant partnership over the years now. I would say that the name is it's one of the brilliant exports of Macedonia that's now become a regional name. Yes, I was born in Belgrade, and actually got my name after my aunt, and I do quite like it. And you know, when I'm abroad, many people comment on how nice and sort of melodic it is. So as years go by, I like it more.
So you're actually a sort of ambassador also of Macedonian
Absolutely.
culture, let's say, or heritage.
I would like to think so.
So I mentioned that you have a very successful international career, I would say, linking Balkan region with United Kingdom. So how it starts, how your professional career was shaped that you become what you are now? What pushed you out of the region to go more international?
I'm afraid I was studying in Belgrade in the 90s. So what pushed me and many others were Milosevic government, sanctions, and if I'm being very honest, I think it was not as if I were presented with a range of choices from which I chose. I was looking for doors that are open or potentially open, and then doing my best to make success of it. I studied law. I was interested in international law. I got a scholarship from Swedish government to do master's program, and that is how I first left Serbia. I then, for really private reasons, moved to London, but it was my passion whilst studying in Sweden to work in the field of European Convention on Human Rights and European Court of Human Rights, and then I managed to find a job in London in an office that represents clients before European Court of Human Rights. So I would say it was not all brilliantly planned in advance, but when you look backwards, it does sort of piece and come together.
Usually, careers are not planned in advance, but actually you, as in your case, of course, in 90s in Serbia, the challenge that you face, you turn it into opportunity, and then actually the path showed to you. When you start working on the path starts showing to you. That's what also Rumi said. So you are too brave enough to go outside and to start your path. I mentioned in the introduction that actually you're very good in networking between organizations here people here and organization people in United Kingdom and exchange ideas between them. And we usually hear these days that networking is very important, and it really it is important, especially for those that for us that we experience the past, how that we grow, and we realize that really at the end networking is very important. How we can build meaningful networking, let's say, and how companies that already start now at the moment, let's say this year, startups, how they can develop meaningful networking.
Well, I mean, listen, I think first, networking comes easier to some than to the others. If you are an extrovert who just enjoys engaging with people and who is genuinely curious to sort of to hear from others, it is a smoother process. I do think that the most effective networkers are those that don't network with a specific transaction in mind, specific trade-off in mind. You need to build relationships. You need to build relationships in the sphere of your interest with people who have joint interests, joint professional interests. But I think, we all sense when someone networks with a specific aim in mind. And I think that can be a little bit sort of off-putting. I think focusing on the relationship first, and then having confidence that in time, this partnership will one way or the other yield to a result is more effective. You sort of, especially when you come into a new place and you need to set yourself up, you need to identify who are the people with whom you just need to get to know, and with whom you need to develop a bit of relationship. And if you are being helpful to them, sooner or later, it will start coming back your way. So I would, but to be able to do all of that, you do need to be conscious of the fact that networking is hugely important. And if it doesn't come to you naturally, to think about it consciously and not to perceive networking as, unnecessary add-on, waste of time. Actually, it's sort of essential. And I would argue, with so much information and knowledge being available to everyone now because of AI, I think in a way we will probably go back to our networks more, because it'll be too hard to go through hundreds of emails and offers that you get from someone. You will want to go back to trusted contacts. So I think it's an illusion that the fact that now you can send an email to everyone means that you don't need to network. On the opposite, I'd say you need to network more.
Actually, I recognize the word trust. In building networks, you should build first the trust, not building networks only from lucrative reasons, let's say, having hidden agendas. And as you said, people recognize that, and then it's not the strongest link in the network if you are just from some lucrative or hidden agenda reasons in this networking. In this sense, you work with organizations and companies from the UK and Balkan region. Is there any difference for sure there is, but please tell us, what is the difference in corporate cultures and relationships in UK companies and in Balkan companies? I guess in Balkan companies are more informal than UK.
I think, all generalizations are sort of a bit tricky, because when we talk about Balkan companies, or companies that have offices here, many of them are actually international companies. So, that corporate culture will then trickle down to sort of local offices. I think it's fair to say, and that I think majority would agree, that we as a region sometimes lack discipline and lack structure and lack sort of following processes and systems and just being consistent. And that actually counts for a lot. And I think so. Sometimes you feel across different sectors, public and private, that there are very capable individuals, but because system as a whole doesn't work in a structured and disciplined way, the end result is not as productive as it would be in an environment maybe a bit more like UK, where actually following operating procedures and structures counts for more. But what I'd say, here relationships count for a lot. Relationships count for everywhere, but here in particular. And I would argue because we are accustomed to building relationships, when you go with that skill to the Western system, actually it's quite effective combination if you're also learn how to be organized, disciplined, etc. Having that agility, that sort of resilience that I think for better or worse we all have here just to survive, is very effective. And you see it with our people very often when they move.
Yeah, they're
abroad.
Usually successful everywhere they go from here.
Yeah.
So actually the system is very important. The system that recognizes the talent, innovations and capability to push up. Unfortunately, in our regions, usually these individuals are not pushed up, they're pushed down. Negative selection, what is called. But how in the companies we can build a corporate culture, because it starts from the companies actually. How the companies can build a corporate culture that is fostering innovation and talent, not suppressing, I would say, putting aside, especially in the Balkans. And what would you suggest to those that are starting businesses, how they can, or they already have business, how they can shift their corporate culture in terms of keeping the talents in innovation inside the company, beside the financial stimulation, I would say?
I mean, when you speak to leaders of companies and you put it to them like that, they'll all say, yeah, no, of course. I mean, of course, we want to foster this and that and the other. But actually, then you need to start translating it into specific steps that you need to take in order to really deliver on it. For example, you need to have a culture of continuous professional development, genuinely not being an add-on, but being seen as core part of job description. I mean, that means allocating resources, allocating time, and doing that sort of across sort of all levels and sectors. Genuinely wanted to hear feedback from people, I'd say. If you're saying that you want to be innovative, if you want to have good staff retention, but actually you have a culture that stifles feedback, and where your employees don't feel like they can actually genuinely raise concerns, then it's not going to work. And I'd say, perhaps being sort of, we all have formal processes for providing feedback to employees, and in particular in bigger structures, it does need to be sort of structured, and I understand that. But in parallel, you need an informal system of a little bit more continuous feedback, because people do need to hear when they've done something well. And then it's easier also to tell them when they've done something a little bit less sort of well. And that shouldn't be only preserved for, 6 monthly or sort of annual review. There has to be a continuous conversation. And I know that when you're busy, sometimes that time is, for a manager, difficult to carve out, but it's actually necessary if you want people to be motivated.
Feedback, positive or negative, should be there if we want to change the culture, let's say. Not to wait people to figure out what you want as a manager to do, but to directly explain the expectations, I
Yeah.
guess. And you mentioned that learning, professional learning, not only professional, even skills, individual skills are very important in developing careers and developing the right professional cultures. Actually, the companies that want to change professional culture should send, I guess, their employees to the education programs where they can get skills and abilities in line with the company corporate culture. You are you're a lecturer and here on a M6 program for leadership and sustainability for years. Do you see? Can you feel that you have impact on the those that attend the lectures and programs? Are they excited when they are on a classes? And please tell us if there is. I guess for sure it is, but from your point of view, what is the impact of continued learning and attending, developing yourself professionally, individually? What would you suggest to the new employees or employees uh, to go on this learning, or just to be satisfied with the diploma that they get from the faculty and think that is the end of learning?
Well, I think in all fairness, you always, in order to be successful, you always needed to continue to learn throughout your professional career. But I think now it's no longer even sort of a point of debate. The way we work and the way any job, and I really mean any job, will be done in 5 or 10 years' time will be transformed through technology, through AI. So you simply have to evolve, and you have to learn how to be agile, adaptable, and how to use these tools as they are relevant and pertinent to your job and your industry. And I do think that it's in companies' enlightened interest to jump on this agenda as soon as they can. Putting head in the sand is the worst possible thing you can do, because the change is very rapid and will be very wide-reaching. So for young people, I think they are growing up with the awareness that actually they will need to learn continuously. I think another powerful thing about sessions that, like the one that we just have here, is that you bring professionals from different companies, and they are going to spend some time here together. And this is beginning of a professional network being built. They will be in a position to phone each other's in a month's time and get advice, get feedback, continue building this network informally. And I think for institutions like M6, to encourage that alumni network to grow is another powerful product of the type of education that they give. Because when I spoke to Alan, the director, I was impressed by how much is being done here. So the alumni network, if you think about it that way, is actually exceptionally broad. And for these people to be able to stay in touch and support each other's, if you will be a very powerful thing.
You are founder of WOBA, Woman on Board, Adria, where you actually help women, in all sense when I said help, to be members of the boards of the companies in the region. And I would like to ask you in this context, have you noticed differences, or what are the differences between women and men when on a leadership position? And what is the ideal? I guess there was a strengths and some weak parts of each gender, how we can combine them together in a management team to work in the best way for the companies.
Thank you. So, I mean, first, just to maybe give you a bit of background on VOBA, Women on Boards Adria was launched in 2023 as a non-for-profit organization, and our mission really is to increase percentage of less represented sex, which happens to be women, in senior leadership and at board level of companies across the region. And not only because it's just and fair, but because there actually is a strong business and economic case. And it ties into what you said about men and women, and I'll explain why is it in interest of companies to have inclusive leadership, to have both. As part of that, we both try to raise awareness and promote legislative measures that would help set targets for companies to have certain percentage of women. But we also do a lot of both training and networking with women. And today here with M6 as VOBA's training partner, we have just held board readiness training course, which was attended by women in mid-management of number of corporates in North Macedonia who aspire to board roles going forward as next step, or senior management as next steps in their career. And this particular training actually looks to perhaps help women with some of the strengths that then at one point potentially become barriers to further success. I would say that, again, on balance, in majority of cases, women do require greater level of sort of feeling that they're prepared, that they know what they're doing, that they're in their comfort zone before moving to the next step. That becomes a challenge once you're moving to senior leadership or you're moving to board positions. It is probably fair to say that men are more comfortable with a higher level of risk as leaders, more comfortable with operating on the basis of lesser percent of information available than women require, and perhaps sort of very good at focusing on single issue and then exclude others, but sort of focusing on that single issue to deliver on their objective. Women's strengths, and this is research demonstrates, are that women also do as leaders, they nurture. They nurture their teams. They're more consultative. They seek consensus. They, for example, on climate, which is one of the top issues now for most companies, one way or the other, are a lot more likely to have awareness of these issues and to want to bring them into decision making. And this is why inclusive leadership actually delivers best results. It's not either or. It is, both leaders, both male and female leaders, need to have all of these skills that I've mentioned. But it's probably fair to say that in majority of cases, men gravitate towards first set and women sometimes gravitate towards second. And that's why actually having mixed boards and mixed perspectives is what leads to better business results, more resilience, etc.
Yes, I fully agree with you. Unfortunately, especially in Balkans, even in political bodies, not only in companies, there is still the women minority, maybe 20, 30% in the total numbers of the board or parliament or whatever government body. We come to the issue you mentioned, climate change, sustainability. We come to your next expertise, I would say, sustainability. You're expert in ESG for companies, environment, social governance. And when it comes to that, your company, consultancy company, Sustainary, I hope I pronounce right, but you are in that field very exposed, and you are working on in this region. Coming to environment, social, and governments, what do you think? Let's say, what is there at the moment gap between UK companies and Balkan companies in terms of that? And what do you think in this current context, economical and political, is ESG on standby now, or is still have the same trend of growing like the years before? I want to. The context is the right that the United States has the biggest economy, and now not putting too much on this, on a climate and governance and social issues. And on the other hand, we have the wars where around us, where Gaza, Ukraine, where also again, this is the last thing that politicians and organizations are bothered with.
Okay. I'll need to unpack this because you've asked me several questions here and several very good questions. I mean, let me first say a few sentences about what Sustainary Partners does. Few founders, but primarily actually myself and my sister, have founded Sustainary Partners now 3 years ago. And you're right, our core mission is to work with clients in private sector to support them in integrating sustainability into their core business strategies. And that will be both financial institutions, private equity funds, but then it will also be real sector in industries ranging from cement to IT. Apart from that, very early on, we felt that in this region, we simply, and it's a factor of regulation, the level of awareness of those issues is not as high as it is in UK, simply because national legislator has moved and set up whole range of benchmarks for industry to meet. So if you ask me, are the UK companies more advanced? Of course they're more advanced because they have to be compliant with legislation that demands more of them. And because we want to talk about this topic and we want to talk about it regionally, in 2023 we launched ESG Adria Summit that has now been held for 3 years and is growing into Adria Future Summit next year, because the agenda really now has broadened from just laser focusing on sustainability to the whole growth, resilience, sustainability, innovation agenda. So I would say that now in Sustainary, apart from the core work with clients and trainings on ESG, etc., we have Summit that has become project of its own, mini Davos for the region. Many say so. This is the sort of the idea that we bring in one place politics, business, and the third sector to discuss direction of travel of this region. Where do we want to, how do we want to position ourselves? What type of investors do we want to attract? What do we need to do in order to attract the type of investor that will be good for both this and future generations? When it comes to ESG, I mean, you're right. It's fair to say that there has been a bit of a cultural backlash, especially in some countries. I would say that, because ESG is a very broad umbrella, actually. It includes both environmental factors that have to do with climate mitigation, but then also more immediate issues such as pollution. Then it includes the full social component, and that is how you treat your employees, but also how do you treat
Society.
community, society, non-discrimination, all these issues, and then governance. And I think here in the region, probably we'd want to put it as GES or something. I mean, governance is our in a way weakest point, and governance is the beginning and end of it. Once you have good governance and good corporate governance, it actually will then look to comply and look to assess risks on environmental and social agenda. And I think sort of focusing on this area now for us here in the region, we shouldn't be too distracted by what's US thinking. Is it thinking this or that? We're looking to join European Union. European Union is firmly standing behind this agenda. Will some of regulations be delayed a bit to allow private sector to adjust? Possibly. But on the other hand, climate change, is happening faster than we expected. We are hugely underinvesting into climate adaptation of the region. The risks for our region coming from climate change are higher than for, say, some of the northern countries in terms of droughts, in terms of fires, etc. And we've been witnesses to some of that already. So I think, the debate is out there. I would say that when you talk about US or you talk about big corporates, you'd hear now of a new term called green hushing. And green hushing stands for still doing some of these things because, you still, as a bank, definitely want to assess risk of investing into Florida. So you're going to assess these risks just as you did before Trump, but you're no longer going to be talking about it. And you're going to be talking about it from risk perspective, and you're not going to be talking about it as net zero commitment because it attracts negative political attention. But climate change is happening at a pace that, if anything, is faster than what we predicted. When it comes to social and governance issues, we've seen that many projects in the region have been put to a halt because of reputational issues. So it makes good business sense to take these factors into account. It's not about just compliance. It's actually about business interest of companies. And I would argue that if you approach it from the right angle, it actually is an investment. It's not a cost, and it ought to bring results.
You're fully right about the governance. Although among these three, governance is the least one that the companies care. They declaratively say that they care about environment and social, but no one mentions governance too much. But governance is actually the crucial, because so far businesses, the bottom line of businesses was profit. Now there's triple bottom line. It's profit, planet, and people. Planet is environment, people is social. And governance is still not mentioned, but governance, good governance, and I would link now with the women in the boards, because women can take care more about inclusive, and they are more willing to give up a portion of profit to solve some environmental and social issues, let's say. So this combination of more women in the board with the right attitude can change the corporate culture of the companies that will not take care only of profit like so far, especially the Balkans. If it's something cheaper, although it's not environment friendly, we will use this. So corporate culture in terms of whole supply chain, and big companies can influence the whole supply chain to shift their mindset. Actually, governance is the crucial to shift from, let's say, linear to circular economy, where the companies will take care also by the society in which they operate, the workers, the environment, are they using right materials or not, and at the bottom line is governance. So changing governance will change probably everything, and ESG will become, on a long run, even not long run, on a short run, it will become competitive advantage of the companies that implement. Coming to that, what would you suggest? Let's say today, young people, young managers are under pressure to have fast success, nice living, live in a comfort zone, not to bother too much with global issues. What would you suggest to those that are now in a junior positions, let's say in the companies, or those that want to be in a leadership position? I would not say managers, because I think in the future there will be leaders that will need emotional and social intelligence beside professional skills. So in which direction they should invest in their careers and in their individual growth?
Well, I would first say that, and this is perhaps it's a bit of a generational thing. You know, when I was sort of growing up, I mean, certainly also because of probably circumstances of the 90s, you know, in the end, what you wanted was to, you know, have a trajectory towards what looks like a career. You were not too philosophical about whether that fulfills your purpose in life, whether you feel, you know, happy, whether you feel happy every day. Of course, you know, I was very fortunate. I mean, I did choose things I was interested in. But I think there has to be an understanding that, you know, as they say, choose easy, work hard. You know, absolutely choose something that excites you sufficiently, that so that you feel motivated to be in that profession. But then really be prepared to work hard. And being prepared to work hard means that there are going to be days where you wake up and it's going to be an awful day. And then next day is going to be an okay day. And then the third day may be a great day, but then you're going to have an awful day again. And this sort of idea, which I think it is a little bit unfair almost on young people, that they're growing up with the expectation that everything is going to go smoothly, and if it doesn't go smoothly, they're not in the right job and they should move to another one. That's not life, actually. You know, a lot of any job is a little bit persistent. You know, you have to be persistent. It's going to be a little bit mundane. It's going to be, you know, life is sort of, you know, disappointments. And you have to, if you've chosen an area which you're motivated to work on, you have to be prepared that it's not going to be all smooth sailing. And it's not going to happen perhaps as quickly as you expect. That's the other thing, I guess, sort of resilience and patience.
It takes time.
Patience. It takes time. And you might not be very good at predicting how quickly things should move. So, you know, in a way, you need to invest in process, not necessarily be so invested in a result and date around that result that you get so disappointed. And, you know, sometimes, I mean, let's be fair, all of us, when we had difficult times at our careers, but if you're smart about it, you use it to recalibrate, to develop, to focus on correcting, you know, mistakes that you've made, and not repeating them in future. So I think this sort of idea that actually, you know, it may not feel very nice in that moment in time, but you will have downs, and you know, you should use those downs to actually analyze what you should be doing differently next time around, better next time around. I mean, I'm afraid those downs teach you more than successes do. painful though they are.
Yes. And unfortunately, maybe young generations have high expectations and not high resilience to reach their expectations. Actually, in a life is not what you dream for, but what you fight for. You get it what you fight for.
But I don't necessarily I mean, they are, where do they get their information from? They get their information from social media that projects image of people who are living blissfully glamorous, successful lives. Nobody
Easy
talks.
working.
Yeah, it's sort of, and that's actually, I mean, that's just not
reality.
Not reality. But perhaps we're not telling them that sufficiently.
Yes, you're right. So, at the end, what would you summarize for the crucial qualifications, not only professional but as individual qualifications, for the future success in the next 5 to 10 years? What qualities one person should have, beside professional one, that can make this person in position to be a leader, to be someone that change the society and the people around them on a better?
I mean, I think sort of agility and resilience have always counted for a lot, but they'll count more because sort of the way we work and the opportunities that they will have will change so rapidly that they need to be agile and responsive. And in order to be resilient, I think you need to be prepared to work hard, but also having sort of a mindset that they call dispositional optimism, being sort of, being prepared to work hard, but having positive outcome in mind gives you strength to sort of jump over these hoops that are going to be difficult. And I think then also sort of at one point accepting that we actually, life is a lot more uncertain than we'd like to admit, that we are comfortable with admitting. So if you accept that life is uncertain, and if you accept that there may not be a right decision, you could argue that you should go into this profession, you should go into that profession, there are always going to be pros and cons. Ultimately, at one point, you need to take a decision and then double down on that and make that decision right. Rather than looking for a right decision,
Make it right.
Take a decision and then do what you need to do to make it right. I mean, if I look at my trajectory, a lot of it was, in the end, I had to decide one way or the other. I was not sure, what's the right route, but once you've taken that route, don't look back.
Work hard.
Work hard and don't look back. And that's, and make it right.
And be ready to go out of comfort zones, not several times in a life, maybe more in comfort zone, out of comfort zone than in comfort zone. And that's the way of growing, being out of comfort zone. Thank you, Biljana, for this wonderful conversation, for your perspective of all these topics that we discuss. And we are honored to have you today here with us in M6 Educational Center, and hope that you are going to come in next education programs that we are going to organize here in M6 and to be our guest, because it's always a pleasure to listen to you on a lectures and to have you here as a guest.
Thank you very much, and thanks to M6 for, I mean, as I said, great partnership with both VOBA, but also with Sustineri. And we are actually planning a number of things going forwards. So I will be back to Skopje before long.
Hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
Драги гледачи, тоа беше Biljana Braithwaite, основач на Sustineri и на VOBA, Women's on Board Adria. Ни беше чест што имаме денеска тука со нас, што споделивме интересни гледишта на различни теми, кои верувам дека ви беа интересни и од кои верувам дека ќе извлечете одредено знаење, поука и ќе ве водат во вашите идни чекори. Ако ви се допадна подкастот, продолжете да не гледате и бидете со нас. Благодарам.